Martinez, and this is the Indy Real Estate Market Weekly Podcast. We have a special guest on the show, two of them today, Brenda Cook with FC Tucker and Patty Thornberry with Security Home Inspections. And we got a lot to talk about on inspections. And Brenda's going to talk about the Broad Ripple, Meridian, Kessler area, which not a lot's going on. But anyway, Patty, thank you for coming on the show today. Brenda, thank you for coming on the show today. And we're going to let Shelly take it off with let's talk about inspections. Let's get right to it because we got a long show today.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Patty, to be with us. And I do want to say real quickly, she just won an award this morning with the Tucker Home Services as one of the best. Security Inspections is one of the best inspection companies here.
Okay, good.
So
who else
congratulations.
Okay, and who else won an award that's sitting here at the table?
And another person at the table just won an awesome award, the FC Tucker Bud Tucker Award for... Tell us a little bit, Kyle.
Yeah, tell us the award you won.
It was Volunteer of the Year for FC Tucker. So,
good.
But you didn't volunteer for Tucker. You volunteered for about 1,000 people and helped them out. So many people. So
I do a lot.
Congratulations again. You won it for MyBore, and then you won it for Tucker. So congratulations.
Well, congratulations on that to both of you guys, okay? But, we got the little bit of a slowdown in the market, but we're going to talk about pricing, bidding wars that are starting again, high interest rates. But let's just jump right into inspections right now because we need to be educated on this, and we want our listeners to hear about this. And maybe they'll reach out to Patty and ask some questions later.
Right. So, Patty, if you want to tell us a little bit about who you are so everybody can know, we know who you are. But the reason we have Patty here today is we continue to talk about how if you're going to do a new build, you definitely need to have an agent involved in the process and an inspector. And talking with Patty, she has some stories. So, Patty, tell us a little bit about your company.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us, and congratulations on your...
Thank you. You as well.
That's so cool. Okay, so we've been in business since 1984. And Phil and I got this started, and it's just blossomed. I know the first year we did our inspections, we thought we were rich. I mean, we did $140,000 worth of inspections. I thought, this is great, But anyway, over the years, we've grown. And now we not only do Indiana, but we have crossed the line, and we are actually in Illinois as well.
Oh, good.
Very cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Growth.
So what are your thoughts when somebody is going to do a new build? It's a brand new house. Nothing's wrong with it, right? Everything is brand new. It's coming from the ground up. Everybody's looking over the process as it goes, and then they can just close and not worry about a thing, right?
Right. Not right. Okay, so new construction. New construction has really changed over the years. The biggest thing that we've seen is homeowners are now ready for inspections on new construction. There was a time when you didn't get it. You went to the builder and you believed that the builder did everything absolutely perfect, and you closed, and then you had your warranties, and that was it. But people are a lot smarter these days. They want to know what's behind the walls, and you've got one chance to know what's behind those walls on new construction. That's
and so you do have different phases of when you come in, and definitely one of them is before the walls are put up.
Yes, we actually do. We've found over the years that having a 4-phase inspection is what works best. So the first phase is the foundation phase. On a slab, we want to see it before the slab gets poured so that we can look and check all the plumbing lines. We've got a couple of people that did not have that done. They've got plumbing issues, and their plumbing, after they've already closed and moved in, they're having to jackhammer the slab up to get to the plumbing problem, right? And on basements, we want to check it before the backfill. We need to be able to see the foundation walls before the backfill. The next phase is the rough-in phase, or pre-drywall, and that is before insulation, if at all possible. Sometimes the insulation's in, but we really prefer it without it. And we'll check everything that we can check at that point. And then the third phase is the final phase, and that is before the builder walkthrough. We want to be able to give you in writing what we saw before you sign off with that builder that says, yes, it's great, right? And then the fourth phase is we contact you at the 11th month so that you can have us come in and you totally go through the house again. We go through with you, and we write up another report, and that's what you give to the builder a year later. And one little trick that we came up with
because of the 1-year warranty, right?
Because of the 1-year warranty, yeah.
Very smart.
The 1-year builder warranty. But here's what's also smart is when people move in, after you've been in a house for a while, and you all have houses that you live in,
sure,
you start putting up with things within a house.
Absolutely.
That you just like, yeah, the toilet works. I have to jiggle a handle, but the toilet works, right?
Yeah, of course.
Well, on new builds, what we tell people is to create a list on the side of the refrigerator. You've always got one side of the refrigerator nobody sees. Just start your list. And whenever you have a door that doesn't close, a window that doesn't close, something that happens, start your list. And then when we come out the 11th month, hand us that list and we'll go through and create more.
And that's
like that.
important because the builder's going to come through and ask you what's wrong. And if you don't catch it all, then 13th month, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. What do you find in regards to how do builders accept you when we say we want to come in and do it? Because I know in my experience as a real estate agent, some builders don't appreciate this.
No, they don't. But you know what?
It's a mixed bag, I think, depending on the actual builder.
Right.
It
What,
is
what happens, Kyle? I mean, do you guys run into it, Brenda and Kyle?
Absolutely. They do not like it.
I've had some who are like really, really good, and they're like, the more eyeballs on it, the better. It's like for me, it has really, really been a mixed bag, and I don't even want to say builder to builder. It's almost like foreman to foreman. It's super to super. Like it's been. It really just depends, almost like an individual basis, house by house basis. It's not even like I can say this builder frowns upon it or whatever. Like that's just not been my experience whatsoever.
One thing that we found during those last few years, 2 or 3 years, is that the builders are getting field managers, and they're getting them from anywhere. Now, an average field manager should and is capable of managing maybe 5, 6, 7 houses. They're giving these guys 20 and 30 houses to do, and that's just it's impossible.
And you're seeing that as a difference from the past.
That is one of the huge difference. The other difference from the past is once COVID hit and you have the supply issues, they were closing with the house not 100% done. They're accepting materials that are less quality because they can't get the ones they really want, so they have to take something less quality.
And they don't want to return it because then it's going to delay everything. Yep.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all. Yeah. It's a big
I've
deal.
seen that too on wood. So the wood, like you said, before the drywall goes up, the wood that's being used, whatever it has huge notches out of it, or just stuff that like you're saying. They ran out of materials or just used what they could to get the product done. And again, seeing that before drywall.
Well, that's good. But let me ask some questions. So we know about the new builds. Okay, that's good that you went through the steps in the process. And I know the prices are different because of how big the house is. So, if somebody ever wanted to contact you, they would be able to reach out to you and get that information. But here's what I want to talk about. Let's say that you're buying a home that's 25 or 15 years old. Let's go 20, 25 years old. That's been well maintained. Let's say that the house is well maintained down in the Broad Ripple area or Meridian Counselor. On a house, what kind of things do you find on homes like that today in the market?
In the older homes, it really depends on the people that live there and if they have maintained the house.
Of course.
Right? And so there's a lot. I feel sorry for some realtors that end up getting a listing at such a great address and they get there and they realize it's deferred maintenance gone bad.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
And it's just a nightmare. So we find a lot of different things. I will say that the number one thing that we find in the older homes is sewer cams. We do sewer cams.
Okay.
And that is where we take a camera and take it down the sewer line from your main cleanout all the way to where it tees in with the lateral. And we're checking that underground line. And if you think about the sewers in Indianapolis, we've got some old sewer lines, right?
Oh, I'm sure
so that's
we do.
fun. Molds, we do a lot of mold testing. People ask us for that. And the reason they ask us for it is for 2 reasons I found. One, they have smelt something in the house when they were in it, right?
Correct.
Or 2, they've got a situation where they need to have it done. I had a client that called, and she was actually buying a newer home. It was only like 2 or 3 years old. And she told me she wanted mold testing. And I said, well, it's only 2 or 3 years old, whatever. And I said, may I ask you why? And she said, because I have a 12-year-old and he's only got 1 lung, right? And so you don't know why people are asking for things.
Sure.
But in older houses, you inspect a house for the age it is. And you got to go there, So like when you've got a buyer that's purchased a house that was built in 1940, they bought a 1940s house with
Absolutely.
the character and everything else. And so we tell them, this is the way it was built. This is fine. This is fine.
And you can't make it new again and come up to all the codes.
No, you don't. You don't want to try that. But to that point, if somebody does a remodel, right, or they've updated the kitchen, for instance, then they have to for the kitchen. and they don't realize that sometimes.
I can't imagine how many times you are expected to be a roofer or an HVAC professional, because I mean, we deal with it all the time where, hey, it's an 18-year-old roof, it's an 18-year-old furnace, it's an 18-year-old AC.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And there's literally nothing wrong with it. Everything is functioning perfectly,
Right.
right? And then like we literally run into that probably on inspection. One of those three, if not all three of those, is what we run into the most. And it's like, the roof is actually fine, like,
Right.
but at the same time, is it end of life? Blah blah blah. And I'm
Yeah,
sure, like,
you
we
guys
deal
put
with
that word "end of life" on there, and it scares the bejesus out of all the
Yeah, but the
buyers.
bottom line is it's true.
It's
You
accurate,
got to.
right?
It's at the end
Right.
of life, and my conversation is constantly, so is maybe our 85 or 100-year-old grandmother, but it's still working. You know?
Right.
I always tell people, and you know, I don't want to minimize it. It's just try to put it in perspective. My last house, we bought it with an 18-year-old furnace, and we sold it with a 28-year-old furnace, and it was working just fine.
They work
They
better.
were built good then.
Yes, they
right?
work better when they're
And,
old.
and like the newer ones, the newer ones come with the 5-year warranty, and so people say, well, how long will it last? Well,
4.
right, 5 years and
1 month.
day.
But my new build,
Right.
my water heater went out in 5 years.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got
Right.
a
They were
life
they're built
expectancy of
good.
10, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when it comes to the inspection, we were talking about this before the show, and you really woke me up on something that I really didn't see. You said a lot of times we get a for sale by owner getting inspections. So they get an inspection and they get a report, and let's just say there's 10 things on the report or 8 things on the report. Don't they? So do they call you and ask you all these different kind of questions when they really should have had a realtor help them buy this house or sell the house, right?
Right. So what ends up happening is about 10% of our business comes from for sale by owners, or people are just finding you on the internet, right?
Right.
And they go ahead and they order the inspection. We ask them who their real estate agent is. And, I did it on my own. I didn't need a realtor.
Right. They saved all kinds of money.
Right. They saved all kinds of money. So then
think.
what happens is we do the inspection, we give them the data, and then they call us back. And what they want us to do is they want us to go over everything and what should they ask the seller to do.
That's
for
not
them
your
and all this
job.
stuff. And it is not our job, and we don't cross that line.
Right.
Right. So we recommend to them at that point, even though they don't have a real estate agent at that point, that maybe they would like to get a realtor as a consultant.
Right. Or contract a
that transaction.
construction company and pay them to go through everything. That's the problem when people don't use a real estate agent to buy or sell a home. Don't you agree, Shelley?
Well, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago in regards to somebody who did call me after they were knee deep into the inspection process as a buyer. Neither one of them were represented. They ended up falling apart because the seller saw this huge amount of things that many of them major said not fixing it, and then they fought over earnest money, and it just got really bad. Whereas if they just would have had somebody who understood the process and could help them get through the process, the seller needed to understand that you do need to fix some repairs if you want to keep that buyer potentially, because the buyer has the option to say I'm out. But then the buyer lost the earnest money because nobody was helping, and the seller said I'm not giving you earnest money and I'm not fixing anything. That whole situation could have been a lot smoother. The seller obviously wanted to sell.
Of course.
The buyer obviously wanted to buy, but it just went downhill from there.
So, there's a bigger issue there too that people don't think about, especially sellers, right? So the seller says, I'm not fixed. That just changed his seller's disclosure.
Absolutely.
So you're either going to fix it for my buyer or you're going to be fixing it for the next one. Which one do you want to do? Because now you got to tell people about it. It's not a secret.
So I'm curious with these for sale by owners, when you have to go and do one for a buyer who's maybe represented, but the seller is for sale by owner, and the seller wants to be there for inspection. He doesn't leave because they didn't have an agent saying, hey, don't be there.
Right.
And they're always like, oh, hey, just so you know, I had extra insulation blown in behind the drywall. Like all these little things, and rightfully so, they have pride in ownership and all these things, but they want to tell you all these things.
Right.
How like, no, this house is next level. And you're like, I don't know. It's just like all the rest of them for the most
and
part.
that was something that came up previously, before COVID. We literally would, you can't kick a man out of his castle. So we can't say you have to leave. It's their home. They can do what they want, right? But my goal and my hope is that the listing agents for these tell them to keep their mouth shut, because every time they open their mouth during an inspection, they're opening up their liability even
absolutely.
more, right? Yeah. And so you just don't want that. Now, when COVID hit, think about this. When COVID hit, we had buyers going still on inspections, and we had sellers there, and all their kids were there, and the wives were there, and in fact, we had one that we did where it ended up that there were so many cars in the driveway because the kids live there, the adult kids, whatever.
And everybody was home.
Yeah, but it was in Indianapolis in Marion County, and we got called on at the inspection because the neighbors called and said there was a party going on, right? Because there were so many people in the house at that point. But but we had to deal with a lot of sellers that when we're inspecting something and they're supposed to be in another section of the house, totally away from us, and they'll pop around the corner and go, oh, and then they'll answer the question.
I plan on having that fixed or something.
Yeah.
Like I know that
Well,
makes noise,
So,
but
Kyle and
not
Brenda,
my
do you
radar.
tell your sellers to leave?
Oh, absolutely. I tell them to leave. They don't.
100%.
They do not want to hear what they think they hear is not what was said.
Absolutely.
They may hear the inspector say, take a picture of something and say, oh, we need to look at this
Right.
in detail, and they freak out completely.
Right. But that's why you have a real estate agent to handle all this. They don't need to be there.
Right.
You
No,
know, that's the
please
bottom
don't
line.
be there.
You know, everybody's under ethics. Everybody's trying to do their job properly. This is what you got it for. I mean, you
Well,
know.
the other process is too, as an agent, to help them set expectations for both the buyer and the seller, because your reports are how long normally? How many pages?
Oh, I don't know that there's a normal,
Yeah.
but I know, there's really
least?
not a normal. I would say that it's probably around 30 pages, and then it goes up from there if it's an older house, if it's not been well maintained, right?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, hey, we're going to take a break here and in this section of the the inspection world. And we're going to go back in a minute and talk about the stats. Okay, so let's just take a break for one moment, please. And we're back, and we're getting ready to go over the stats for Hamilton County, part of Indy Metro. And Shelley, kick it off with Carmel.
Okay, so still kind of slow. In Carmel, we had 23 houses hit the market, 14 of those pended. And one of the things I'm seeing in all the areas that I'm doing my stats that's really interesting.
Let me see. Let me hear. I'm
So
sorry.
14 pended out of those 23. 2 of those were new builds. The average days on market for those in the 7 days were 42. What I found was of the 14 that pended,
Right.
of those, there were multiple that were these are the 14 of those 7 of the others that pended, because there were many homes that pended last
Go ahead.
week. They're showing houses that have been on the market for over 50 days, 100 days.
Okay.
So that is showing our inventory is starting to be sucked up. So all these houses that are been on the market for a long time, 14 were in the past 7 days that just hit the market, but all the others that pended, all those ones that have been setting are just starting, because there's no
Okay, but what's
inventory
the
coming
average in
on
Carmel right now
of
of the houses that have been sold?
the average days on market
Yeah.
for what has been sold in the past 30 days? The average is 40, the median is 24. So when that starts to come together, that'll show that we're getting rid of the old houses.
I understand
are
that,
on the
but
market.
but let me ask this one more time. What is our average days on the market just for Carmel homes? That's all I want to know.
Average is 40, median is 24.
So break that down for me, because I think the listener is going to be confused on that.
The reason and Kyle and I have been saying this, the reason we're saying average and median is because the median will tell you, it'll throw out those outliers, those houses that have been on the market for 100 to 150 days.
Okay.
We don't want those. So we want the median that's showing us 24 average in my head. 24 days on market, because we're throwing away the big outliers. If I wanted to sit down and look at the
Okay,
houses
but
and
if
get
those
rid of them,
numbers were together, what would they be?
you can't do an average and a median and put them together, because the average is one number, the median is another number.
Okay.
And I'm looking at that because it's exactly what's happening in the pendings that happened in Carmel today in
Gotcha.
this past 7 days. Many of them had been on the market for a very long time.
I'm glad that you went over this in detail.
So
because
think of it like this. Okay, so average would be okay.
got to
so
make it short.
Okay, so I have 21 houses on the market. Okay, so for average days on market, I would add up every single day for all of them. Okay,
Of course.
and then divide it by 21. For the median, I would stack them from something that was 1 day on market all the way to 160 days on market.
Gotcha.
And I would pick the 10th house in the middle.
Right.
Because that is actually showing a better reflection of, because
What's
I may
going
have
on with the
three
market
that are
right now.
really, really high, but the median, so in the middle of all of these, where is it landing? That would be the median.
Perfect.
And what we're looking for, and what I think we're going to start to see, is those numbers are going to become very close together. The average and the median will become within a couple, because
Of course.
these outlying houses that have been on the market for a very long time are going to be gone.
Okay.
And the only houses that we're going to be selling are the houses that just hit the market. And what happens then, Brenda and Kyle? multiple offers.
Okay, so let's go over this because we're going to be running out of time.
Right.
So give me Carmel one more time,
so
and let's just
Carmel-
run through them.
The total active in Carmel is 68. 32 of them are new builds. So
Gotcha.
that is showing only 36 resales. Average days on market have been what we just talked about. So in the past 30 days, I'm getting those numbers, 75 sold. 13 of those were new builds.
Okay.
And remember, that's what's causing that average to go
I
up
got you.
is the
I
new
got you.
builds have had much more many days on the
Let's
market.
go to Westfield.
Westfield houses hit the market 25 in the past 7 days, 13 of them sold. And in the past, there's total 136 active in Westfield.
Yeah, we know that's a lot of new construction,
89
but that's okay.
are new build.
Yeah.
So in the past 30 days, 85 have sold. 40 of those were new builds. So Westfield is so heavy on new builds, either on the market, sold, or any of that. So that's where it's really heavy.
What else you got?
Zionsville, 17 hit the market in Zionsville this
How many
past
sold?
7 days. 9. 3 of those are new builds. So that's the most that's hit in Zionsville
In a long
And I
time.
don't even remember how.
Well, we can go back
far
to all of our reports, but you're right.
I don't
that's
think
a
we've
big number.
had 17 in the past 7 days. So Zionsville's picking up all of a sudden.
Right.
There's 41 that are currently active. 5 of those are new builds. And then the average days on market for them was 57. The median's 28. So we're seeing, again, that's a huge discrepancy. And I'm sorry, going back, 41 sold. I did not write down what the total active in Zionsville is right now.
Okay. Let's move over to Kyle.
So full disclosure on mine real quick. I realized because we switched to Connect BLC, and
Gotcha.
so it's just been a little bit
I got
wonky.
you.
I just realized that for like the past 3 weeks, I had forgot to be adding condos and townhomes and stuff like that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So my numbers are a little bit better, but here's the problem. Like for Fishers, they're still worse than they were last
Let me
week
hear
as
it.
far as inventory. So we had 20 go on the market, anywhere from 235 to 825.
How many sold?
10 are active, 10 are pended.
Wow.
23 total pended last week. So back to Shelly's point real quick. So average days on market right now in Fishers is 45. Okay. One of those houses was listed end of last April. That just
I
pended,
understand, but that'll
right?
mess up our numbers a little bit.
Significantly. So average days on market is 45, median 6.
Gotcha.
6, right? And so there's only 66 active in Fishers, which last week was 71. And that was without me adding condos and townhomes. We went down 5, and that was with adding a whole nother subset, right? Noblesville is a little bit different, but it's got its own little issues. So 26 went on the market, anywhere from 125 to 898. 19 of them are still active, 7 pended. So, and then 18 total actually pended. A little bit different here, though. So 44 days on market. Okay, 90 of them are active. But when I was looking at them, Noblesville is heating up. Median for Noblesville,
What is it?
4.
What's the average
days.
price in Noblesville?
I'd have to pull it back up. I would say you're in the. I'm kind of making this.
Let's
up off
do
the
that
top of my
next
head.
week.
I would say you're probably in the 370 range.
Right. Okay. All right. Now we're going to move over to Brenda. Brenda's new. Brenda Cook with FC Tucker here in Carmel, Indiana.
New to the show, not the business.
16 years in the business.
Okay, Brenda, let's go over yours. What do we got in Broad Ripple?
Broad Ripple, we have nothing new and nothing pended right now in the last 7 days. We have 2 active and 2 pended.
That's it.
That's it. Days on market, 59 days on the market's the average. And the average price point is $336.
Wow.
So that's pretty
Okay,
impressive.
and now tell me the big activity in Meridian Kessler.
Meridian Kessler had nothing new, pended, or active in the last 7 days. Right now, they have 3 pending.
Wow.
And average days on markets, 84 days. So they're staying on a lot longer because the average price point is $837. So
that market is
price
really
price.
dead right now. And you know what everybody's doing? They're waiting for spring, right, Kyle?
Right, so that's the thing. When you're talking about Zionsville, Meridian Kessler, like some of these areas, when you're talking about a little bit higher price point, they don't usually have to move out of necessity as much, right? Like they just don't. They, they get to play their cards a little bit better to dictate their own timelines, and they play that to their advantage. So those areas in particular tend to see a pretty high influx of listings when you're getting into more of the spring, summer market. Same with Geist area, stuff like that.
Okay. Hey, I want to move over to the mortgage rates real quick. The 30-year fixed average is 6.875%. You got to remember that is a 760 credit score, 80% loan to value. That's on a purchase. Good debt ratios. The 15 years is 6.25 to 6.5, subject to whether you're going to a bank or a broker. Most banks right now, just to let you know on these two categories, they are right at 7.125. They are there. Okay, we're talking about more broker rates right now. Okay, I just got a guide on it. And then your 5/1 ARM, which is really not much of an advantage right now, is about 6.625. So there's no reason to get that when you get a 30-year fix for about a quarter more. And then the FHA, I think you could possibly squeeze the FHA. I think if you really squeeze the broker, you could probably get 6% to 6.125 on an FHA. But here's one thing I want to go back to real quick, because I always like to kind of recap something. Shelley, tell our listeners about, and Kyle, I want to make it short, but when you guys do these two prices, days on market, explain that to me one more time.
I'm just trying to make sure that people understand that.
And I love it. I love that you're doing this.
Well, and then I'm not a numbers person, but I always heard in school back in the day, the average and median is two totally different numbers that you have to look at, because average can make you look worse than you really are. We really want to look at the median. That's exactly right. And you schooled me today. And I really like that we went through this. Kyle, give me your 2 cents worth.
I mean, I am a numbers guy. Like, I love it. Like, I can just get...
Okay, we know you love the numbers. Don't eat them on the show.
So the bigger thing is, for average days on market,
I'm eating this.
I need that to explain to my sellers. But is really where we're at. Like, this is kind of my worst case scenario.
Gotcha.
Median is pulse of the current market, week over week over week, in my opinion, and that's what I need to explain to my buyers, if that makes sense.
Well, and that's exactly why we look at these stats for the past 7 days. So the past 7 days, average days on market is 1, and the past 30 days is something different.
Gotcha.
And so that's why we give the days on market for the 7 days and the 30 days, because what it's showing us is as we move forward, that 7 days is the most current number showing us, but we don't see any of the sold data for at least 30 days before the close. So we're trying to, in this show is all about being very accurate in the past 7 days. Where is the market? Where are we heading? And the days on market and the median. Like I said, when we get into a market where we're going to be March, April, or whatever, those average and medians will come much closer together.
You're exactly right. And it's like we talked about this last week. We are no Zillow, and we don't want to be, because their numbers are so skewed in the wrong direction for people. It's unbelievable. I'm not knocking Zillow, but I'm not knocking Redfin. But, they got their system. We're local. We're giving information that is local, and we're going through each step that we do. Patty, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they reach out to you, please?
They're going to call me at 317-848-1744. We know houses, and we're here to help people understand them.
Okay. And Shelley, if somebody want to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
You can reach me on my cell phone anytime, 317-201-2601.
What company
Shelley
you work for?
Walters Realty Group with FC Tucker.
FC Tucker. What was the name of that company you used to work for? I can't remember. What's the name of it?
It's not important.
I know it's not. Shelley, who's your boss?
Me.
Okay. Big Daddy, let's go. Tell them how to get a hold of you.
It's Moore's Property Group with FC Tucker, 317-649-5122.
What's your first name?
Kyle.
I thought it was Big Daddy.
Depends. Friends for you. Yeah, it is.
Kyle Morse with FC Tucker.
And
Brenda.
My wife is out of town this week, so I get to be my boss this week.
Okay. All right, Brenda. Brenda Cook, how can people get a hold of you? And let's give them give your full name and your telephone number and your email address, if you would, please.
I'm Brenda Cook. I'm with the Cook Realty team at FC Tucker, and you mostly can reach me on my cell phone. The best is 317-945-7463, and my email is brenda@cookrealtyteam.com.
Brenda, this is a real important question. Who is your boss?
I am my boss.
Okay. The kids aren't?
None of them at home anymore.
Oh, really? Okay. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.